All right. Very excited about another opportunity. I want to encourage all our fans who were so outstanding at our last ball game here 2 weeks ago. I want to encourage all of them to kind of continue where they left off and making this environment just an incredible environment for our young guys to play ball in and just an incredible experience for anyone that came to the game. So I want to encourage them to come back at 11 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, because this is going to be a great game. And, I know that, on the outside looking in, Arkansas hasn't, done, exactly what they wanted to do and what their expectations were at the beginning of the season, but it's still a very, very good football team that's very dangerous. And I feel like, after spending the last couple of days really watching them, and, it's very glaring that they've got some very good football players on their team. And I think that's why they were ranked where they were at the beginning of the year. And so they're very dangerous. I think that there's some explosive plays and some turnovers that if that doesn't occur with this football team, I think it's a much different story in terms of their results. So they're very dangerous. Anytime you have a quarterback that's extremely productive, extremely confident, and has as much experience as their guy has, I think that it's always challenging. So again, on paper, it doesn't necessarily look like what it looks like on film because they do. They've got some very dangerous players on their football team. So it's going to be a great SEC West matchup. We need to go back out there Saturday and play passionate and intense, and hopefully play better than we did last time we were out at Jordan-Hare. So that's our goal, and we'll continue to work on that today.
Questions?
How big was the bye week for you guys in just terms of kind of focusing back in on Auburn?
I think it was big. I think that, again, when you have time to, kind of mentally reflect, on the previous month, I think that's always big. And I thought we had a good, there's a fine line in there on what you're going to do on that off week in terms of trying to stay sharp, yet still at the same time, get a little time off and be able to again reassess and reevaluate things. So I think we were on the right. We're in the right direction with that. But it's always valuable to get that time. Everybody asks, is that the right time? It was good for us. It would have been good for us 3 weeks from then too. You always need that time to kind of back off a little bit and reflect. So that's what we did.
How important is this month of October when you get some key games?
Very, very important. I mean, this, with our schedules in this league, as we all know, that, every month is an important month. There's no question about it. We've got a couple of, obviously we have this 11 o'clock game this week here at home, and then we've got a couple of very tough road games that we got to go play. And every game is extremely valuable. And one isn't necessarily more important than the other right now. Our intent is to continue to improve and win one game at a time. That's what we're focused on. But this month's going to be a taxing month, but really and truly, what month is it?
Coach, you talk about wanting to improve each and every week now that we're heading into Game 5. Is this a better Auburn team than it was at the start of the season?
I think so. I think it is. I think that, again, I think we've played some very quality opponents. I think that's been proven over the last month that we've played some opponents that have all in their own right, in their own different ways, have had a lot of success. Every one of them. And so it'll be really interesting to see just how far we've moved since the last time we played. But practices have been very sharp and been very precise and very energetic. I think we've got a hungry football team that wants to win. I don't think there's any question with that. They've never taken a step back in terms of how they've worked, which doesn't surprise me. We just got to go out there and we got to get a win.
Losing like you did to LSU and then having the bye week, is it hard to kind of sit there for 2 weeks and kind of chew on that a little bit? Would you have liked to have played the next week? Did you guys feel like you made some strides, that you kind of got some momentum, or is that kind of just a catch-22?
Well, I think you can go either way on that. You play that well and you're that disappointed in a loss, again, where we felt like we left some things on the field that we could have converted on and won the football game. You know, you're always chomping at the bit to get out there again the next week and have to wait as short of amount of time as you can before you do that, but that's just not the reality of it. So we won't live in the world of what ifs. You know, we had the week off, and our one goal and intent in the week off was to improve. So I feel like we've done that. I feel like we'll continue to do that this week, but we got to go out there and show it Saturday.
How easy is it to ignore the pressure of beating Arkansas?
There's pressure in beating everybody that we play, so that's really not. We know the urgency and the importance of winning, you know, every game that we play. You know, in college football, as a player and a coach, you got to have a very short memory, both winning and losing, and you got to move on to the next thing. So I think our guys understand that. You know, our guys that have been with us for a few years, we've experienced a lot of great things, and we've experienced some disappointments. That's the journey that we're on. That's the journey that we've taken. So there'll be more great experiences, and there'll be some disappointments along the way too. That's part of growing up. That's part of the journey that we're on. But our expectation to go into every game is to win, and the pressure is no different in this game than any of the previous four.
Coach Kyle had talked about, you know, focusing a little bit more on his footwork. They really looked at a lot of things that he could do in the off week. As a team as a whole, or people individual, what were some other things that you thought that you guys worked on to maybe see some improvement that you needed to fundamentally or technically wise?
Well, I think over our whole football team, we've been able to go back and really, again, without a game, assess things in a little bit more depth and detail than you would if you had an upcoming opponent. And I think that, you know, you can start on defense and work from the secondary all the way up to the defensive line and see, you know, things secondary-wise, playing the football in the air. We've got some pass interference, you know, penalties right now where we could have played the ball better in the air, broken on, you know, squeezed routes more to put ourselves in better positions, you know, to knock the ball down or get, you know, disruptions in the passing game. Linebackers, you know, misfits on, you know, long runs and blitz intensity, you know, and the defensive line just, you know, executing stunts and twists and blitzes. I mean, you go through the whole, you know, the whole gamut defensively as well, you know, and then offensively, you know, starting with, you know, our offensive line, you know, with the things that we've, you know, been able to really improve on and things that we haven't been as good on and that, you know, we certainly have room for improvement. You know, with pass sets and, you know, picking up blitzes and pressure on, you know, certain protections. Running backs taking the right, you know, angles of departure on the running game to be able to do what we're trying to get accomplished in the run game. Quarterbacks taking the right steps, depth of routes with the receivers, crispness of the breaks and the things that we're trying to do with our receivers. And I can go on and on and on. It's everywhere, but I think the assessment, you know, to answer your question, I think the assessment all over our football team was glaring that, you know, we've got a lot of improvement to be made at every position and not just one.
Can you talk about Connor Wilson, the success that he's had, especially against you guys coming off the bench 2 years ago, and then obviously last year in Fayetteville?
He's an impressive young man. I mean, he's an impressive young man. And you know, one of the things that I thought about him 2 years ago when he came into the game, I just thought that when you look at a quarterback and, you know, you say, okay, what are the intangibles of a quarterback that you look for, you know, at that position in a young man, and that is the competitive nature of that guy. He's got it. I mean, I feel like, you know, you just the way he carries himself, the way he talks, and then ultimately how he plays on the field. So he's very competitive, and you know, he's one of those guys that, man, every week you're going to get a battle from him. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter what's going on around him. I know that his teammates know he's ready to go fight another day, and that's very obvious with him. Very impressive young man. Everything that he was built up to be preseason, he still is. And again, I know things haven't gone exactly the way they envisioned them going, but that hasn't changed him as a quality, you know, and his qualities as a quarterback.
Even with the offseason upheaval over there, nobody had them 1-4 at this point in the season. as you've gotten into your film study and preparing for them, what have you seen that specifically led to their downfall for the first 5 games?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I think they're leaving things on the field. I think that when you look at explosive plays, both offensively and defensively, they're giving up more explosive plays, I'm sure, than they would like, and then the turnovers. I mean, I think that again, if there's less explosive plays and the turnovers aren't what they are, I think you're looking at a completely different football team in terms of being in games and winning games. So I feel like they're probably feeling a little bit like we are right now. We've left some of those things out on the field that we've got to improve on, and so those are two things that are glaring to me.
We talked a lot about Kyle and him growing up and improvement, but how big a week is this for the receivers without Warren to grow up a little bit, to step up?
They've got to grow up. They've got to step up. They've got to play better. It's that simple. They got to play better. If the ball hits them in the hands, they got to catch the ball. We haven't done that every time. When we ask the route to be at 15 yards, it needs to be at 15 and not 12. I haven't done that all the time. So that whole group of receivers from top to bottom, whether it doesn't matter who's playing in the game, they've got to improve their game. They got to step it up, and they got to be productive.
Are there any guys who might be making a push to get some more playing time as you head into the second month of the season?
I think, Mark, that what you see there's a lot of young guys that, are starting to get it. Again, I'm going to say this, if you watch a guy step up and kind of stand out on special teams, usually that's a good indication that those guys really have an opportunity to keep working, in offensively and defensively. And that's not 100%, but, some of those young guys are doing that. I think case in point is the Josh Holseys of the world and Jonathan Jones and Ricardo Lewis and guys like that when they show up because they have a knack to be a football player, then I think that you can look at guys like that have an opportunity to come on. I'm not saying that that's going to happen until they continue to work and prove that, we've got a lot of faith in them, being out on the field. But I think guys like that are guys that you're going to see a little bit more from if they continue on the path of improvement.
How has Emery's role adapted in terms of focusing on his own play and his own chemistry with Kyle and trying to lead those receivers along as they try to make those plays?
Well, one thing about Emery that is 100% true in his career since he has been here, since he was a true freshman, is that he's not afraid to compete. And when the game is tight and on the line, and we got to have a catch, if we put that ball somewhere around him, he's usually going to catch that. And that's just called delivering as a receiver. That's what their job is. That's why they're on scholarship. They've got to be able to do that. The problem we have right now is we don't have enough guys right now that are living the same life. And so the younger guys right now that have to come on, we talked to them this whole week about the level of consistency of their play. It's not acceptable. So they got to look at Emery. They got to see what it looks like. And he's been doing that, for his career. And I'm not saying Emery's arrived. He's got to improve in his game as well. And but more times than not, if you throw a ball near Emery and it's catchable, he's going to do that, whether he's taking a big hit or not. He's been that reliable. He needs to come on and continue on to do that. He still needs to improve his game, and we got to get some other guys to jump on board.
How has Philip Lutzen Persian impressed you as an athlete, and also with the way he spends his time off of the field?
Philip is a tremendous young man, and I'll start there. And he's one of those guys that, again, has been very productive for us over 4 years on the field. He's been a clutch guy. He's made big catches. He's made big blocks. He's a guy that decided to come back, and again, we want him to continue to improve as well. We need him to continue to be, productive off the field. He's one of those guys that it's not about him. That he wants to be the right guy off the field too. So, but we're proud of Philip. Philip needs to continue to, again, be productive. As the season goes on. And I think if you talk to Philip, he knows that there's been some really big play opportunities out there where he's made a catch And, you know, he knows he's got to do more with the ball in his hand after the catch, and some things that he takes to heart, you know, and he's got to make those things happen. But fantastic young man, and glad to have him at Auburn. He's an Auburn man.
And you mentioned that he's one of those guys that it's not about him. How have you seen that kind of affect the other teammates to look up to him?
You know, I think they all know that. You know, I think that, you know, just on the practice field, you know, he's working on the practice field, and he's, you know, at the end of practice, he's gassed and he's tired, and he's put in his day's work, you know, and I think the other guys see that. And I just think that, again, you know, you create a lot of credibility for yourself when you're a very productive guy consistently. And he's been that since he's been at Auburn, you know, this being his 4th year. So I think in that regard, the guys have a high level of respect for him.
Gene, the secondary's been, the starting personnel's been different each game. Has that been shored up at all as to what your starting secondary is going to be?
Well, we're working in that direction, you know, again, and you know, we want continuity back there. But, you know, we got new coaches, and we got new, you know, new things going on defensively that require different things, you know, each week. And we, you know, the place that we're at is we're trying to find the guy that no matter how the plan changes, no matter how the game plan changes, no matter what we're asking you to do, that you're going to play within the structure, you know, of the defense. So we're getting closer to feeling a comfort level, but there's some young guys pushing some older guys, and that's just the way it is. And we'll continue to do that. If there's got to be a different guy back there, because one's not, again, in practice and the game, cumulative effect is not getting the job done, then they're going to be watching. They're not going to be playing. So continuity is obviously what we're looking for. We're getting closer to it, but that doesn't mean that, you know, there won't be, you know, other changes down the road. But we got some guys really pushing and competing, and that's the good news.